Welcome to another edition of the Heron Outlet. We're back. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Hest. And after a long international break, Inter Miami playing through it, but without Lionel Messi, without many stars, without 9 guys to be more specific, still find a way to get another 3 points and keep the run rolling with a 3-2 win over Sporting Kansas City at Dry Pink Stadium. A lot to get to on today's show. We'll talk about that win. We'll get to the international break and everything and preview the upcoming match against Atlanta United. But Alex, let's start with that 3-2 win, a very impressive one, mind you, coming from behind without Messi and doing so in a way of scoring goals, the offense that we previously hadn't seen prior to Messi being here, really coming forward. Leo Campana gets 2 goals. Facundo Farias with the goal of the week in MLS this past week. And 4 players combined making MLS Team of the Week honors. A real team performance this week is where we begin. And just your original thought of watching this game and seeing an Inter Miami that we hadn't seen prior to Messi arriving. When Messi arrived and through the League's Cup and now into league play, we've seen the goals, we've seen the spectacular free kicks, we've seen that all early and often in Messi's tenure here. But prior to his arrival, Miami was a team that very much struggled to find goals. Leo Campana was struggling at times to find the back of the net. And without that talisman, you didn't really see much offense delivered from this team. At one point, halfway through the year, they were the worst goal-scoring team in the league. And to see now that not even without Messi, they're able to get all of these contributions. Wonderful game from Busquets again, wonderful game from Alba again, who remained with the squad, but to get it from Campana with the brace, to get it from even a Robbie Robinson who played very well, to get it from Facundo Farias as well off that pass from Busquets. It was really nice to see them perform that well without Messi in the lineup.
Yeah, and that's what Miami's going to have to do when Messi's gone. I think this won't be the last time that this will happen this season, where Messi will be off to international duty, and Miami will have to find a way to win games. But it's not so much them finding a way; it's them, continuing to play how they're playing. But without Messi, they were able to still play well. Obviously, I think if Messi was on that field against Sporting, I do believe Miami would have had a couple more goals or maybe some more fluid attacking play. But Facundo Farias played really well, and it showed why Miami spent that money to bring him in. And it's seriously impressive performance from him and Busquets and Alba. Considering they played a lot of minutes and they're up there in age, but everyone had a solid game. Same backline. Kamal Miller and Toto Aviles, they're starting to form a bit of a partnership there, and they gave up 2 goals, but at the end of the day, they still were good with their progressive passing and distributing. So all around a solid game. You wish you would have been able to keep that clean sheet, but still, Miami found a way to win, and that's what they needed.
You mentioned the back line. We'll get to it in just a sec, but they give up the early goal, and you thought right from there that unfortunately this was not in the cards for Miami. Giving up a goal within the first 10 minutes, we really haven't seen that from this team in the past several months. Able to fight back very well, getting the penalty, Campana converts, and right before halftime taking the lead, which I thought was an extremely important goal for them to have, to take the lead into the half. Facundo Farias, like you mentioned, the goal of the week to seal it in the 60th minute before Sporting Kansas City comes back a little late on, but still not enough time for them to make it happen. This win, again, I think that the interesting part that stands out for me is how different it looked without Messi. There wasn't the possession. There wasn't the passing, the sheer number of passes. We talk a lot about Miami holding the ball in the back line, playing through the back, and really having a control of the game. It wasn't necessarily like that. It wasn't on the other end either, but it was more 50-50. Miami only had 46% passing. They got, or 46% possession. They got outpassed by Kansas City, which we have not seen that happen to them in the Messi era so far. So from a stylistic version of play, what did you see differently that still wound up being effective in Tata's formations, in Tata's style, that still wound up performing and ending up in 3 points?
They were able to attack in transition a lot more. I think that Facundo Farias goal with Busquets, took the ball and played it quickly again. Yeah, they're able to strike and transition a little bit more and kind of play it in that sense instead of having a more possession based style. And I think it worked with the front attacking three that they had with Robbie Robinson, Leo Campana, Facundo Farias. They were able to play a much more attacking style and no, not attacking style, excuse me, counter attacking style and kind of catch that Sporting defense off guard. And there were several times that Miami could have had the game at 4-1 at one point if I think there was that one Robbie Robinson chance where he dribbled through multiple defenders and he just needed to square it to Campana for that to be a tap in, but Robbie wanted to take it himself. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good performance in that regard. But obviously, you want Messi on that field, but I think this game was a little bit more wide open, and the front three could have they've used their pace a little bit more.
I want to talk about Leo Campana, your MLS Player of the Week. 2 goals in this game, 3 goals in the past 2. After not scoring in his previous 11 appearances, both starting and coming off the bench, there was calls for him during the League Cup to start over Joseph when Joseph was struggling a little bit. He really performed, I thought, coming off the bench well and made the case for that conversation to be happening. But now he's really feeling himself, and it was very interesting to see how successful he was without Messi, like we've been talking about here, to be that main striker, that main number 9 right in the middle, and his play earning MLS Player of the Week honors. He is that young designated player. His contract, we've talked about many times on the show before, is so valuable to Miami that if he plays this way, it's almost like you're getting an additional 4 players for the price of 1 with how valuable his deal currently is. So for him playing that well, for Farias to be playing that well, for Diego Gomez, we'll see how bad the injury is, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But Thomas Aviles is starting. All of these are made possible because of Leo Campana. So if he's playing at a high level, it really changes the game for Inter Miami. It really allows for them to not be so reliant on the 3 big transfers that they had from over the summer and spread their wings with the younger players and play more of an MLS style of football that I thought was very effective. For Leo Campana, how important is it for him to gain the confidence and know that he's going to be able to be that target man, that he's not going to have to do these run-on balls, even when Miami was playing a more transitional style like they were against Kansas City?
Yeah, I think with Campana, I think several people have mentioned that these run of games for him kind of shows that he should be the starting center forward going forward, just because he provides an aerial threat and I guess better link up play. Honestly, I know he's not someone who's going to run those channels, but he's still he's got other attributes that probably would cater better to Messi and others. But anyway, I think Campana, he's shown that he can lead the line. Last season he had a great year, and like you said, Ian, his contract as well. It's just beneficial for the team. So to see him play well, as long as with as with his contract being the way it is, it just shows that the Inter Miami front office did a good job scouting and their capology of it all. They did a good job to be able to squeeze all these contracts in a way that is beneficial for the whole team. And to see Campana play well, I think it's just a testament to where this team is going and how they want to continue to build.
One guy I also want to talk about that we haven't really gotten a chance to praise in the wake of this Kansas City game is Nicolas Cefanelli. Hadn't played since early July and returns and plays a very quality 75 minutes, I thought. Was all over the field on both sides of the ball. He created those 2 chances, which you remember, but he also, he had 5 recoveries in that game. He had an interception as well. He was 3 for 3 on his dribbles. I thought his complete game, box to box, was really, I don't want to say a different Stefanelli, because we've seen flashes of that at times earlier on in the year as he struggled to get healthy. But it seemed as though this was the Stefanelli that was promised in the offseason when his announcement was made. And we were so excited about the student of the game that he was and the type of cerebral player that he was. He seemed to understand his role very well and play it transitionally box to box on both sides of the ball, I felt, very effectively in his return.
And yeah, like you said, Ian, before when Stefanelli came in over from Sweden, I believe, we talked about how he, yeah, like you said, a student of the game and how he was going to be that 10 until they figured out the cap situation, whether or not Pozuelo was going to come back. They're still in for Messi. So that was a weird time, but they managed to get Messi in. Now, Stefanelli can play his more natural position, which is on the wing and maybe playing as a second striker. And you saw it against Sporting. He had, a rough couple of first few minutes, but he grew into the game and he had he completed all three of his dribbles. He went three for three. He had a couple of good shots on goal, and he was really active in those half spaces, both him and Farias as well. So I think the entire formation worked in that sense. Obviously, when you add Messi in there, it becomes even more dynamic and even more attack minded and direct. But this, it was cool to see Miami able to still play well even without Messi, and you have Busquets and Alba at the back line. Even Yedlin, the Yedlin was able to get that assist on that Campana's second goal. So the entire team was clicking on all cylinders, and like I said earlier, they probably wanted to keep the clean sheet, but still, it was a pretty probably the best. I'm not going to say it's like the most uh complete game from them, but if they kept that clean sheet, it was a pretty convincing win, even without their captain in
Well,
Lionel Messi.
the fact that they did right, the fact that they did it without Messi, I think is the part that I don't want to say shocked, but was surprising to a lot of us because for them to do it, I mean, still with Busquets and Alba, let's not like get it twisted, still with Farias and Aviles, right? Still with Stefanelli, still with Campana. Like these are not nobodies. It's still with DeAndre Yedlin that they were playing with. That I think is worth noting as well. But you brought up Facundo Farias a couple of times, and I want you to help make me smarter a little bit because he's such an interesting case, and I haven't fully put my finger on what is so intriguing about him as a player just yet. I know every single time I see him play, he grows and grows and grows on me. What he does is so valuable and such a diverse skill set that he has, and he can hurt you in so many different ways, but yet he makes it look very simple. And so I find myself sometimes questioning, like, wow, where did that skill set come from? Wow, was that goal really that hard? I'll point to the MLS goal of the week this week. If you just watch it on face value, I don't know if you watch it once and you leave away with it saying, oh, this is such an amazing goal. This is obviously goal of the week. But you watch his off ball movement from it. You watch how he slows down and baits both the goalie and the defenders into almost a sense of security and then just makes it look so easy. It's such an attacker's goal. And it requires a very intelligent movement and understanding of the game to be able to do it. That each time I watch him play, and each time I just spend like 5-10 minutes and I say, you know what, I'm going to isolate my time on Facundo Farias right now. I'm left impressed by his movement and his way of impacting a game that doesn't necessarily directly show up, but is important in so many diverse skill sets.
Yeah, especially on his goal with Tim Melia, the sporting can't the sporting goalkeeper. He was able to close down that angle really well on the front the near post, but Faku was still able to I don't know just curve it over Melia and still finish. I don't know how many MLS young MLS wingers will be able to calmly finish that. They probably would have shot it straight into the keeper or pushed it wide, but Faku was able to slide that in quite comfortably. And yeah, it's just his pace, his dribbling ability, his explosiveness. It's very, something that Miami hasn't had in club history really. Bar Messi coming in, obviously. But still, I think it's an extraordinarily impressive performance from him. And I think right now with his current form, I think he's definitely a starter on this team, whether it be on that left wing or even in midfield. It depends on what Tata, has him, deployed as. But yeah, I think we're seeing Faku just kind of continue to grow and be comfortable and there's a reason why he was linked to European teams a while back. So I think if he continues to play the way he does, sooner rather than later, those teams will come call him back and whatnot. So really pleased to see him continue to flourish. And I'm intrigued to see how he lines up this weekend against Atlanta.
You touched on the partnership between Miller and Aviles. That obviously moving forward is going to be a big thing that we talk about. How does Sergei Kristov rotate into that as well? I think is very interesting. Who started for Ukraine in their last European qualifier this past weekend? I guess I'm just curious as to your assessment of the evolution of them, given that they did give up the early and late goals. Given that it was not, a good, not great game from Yedlin, a good, not great game from Dixon Arroyo, but also solid performances from Alba and Busquets. And yet that partnership at center back seemed to be the odd man out in performances against Kansas City.
Yeah, I think it's because they let up that early goal. Drake with an uncharacteristic, uh, spillage, and then shallowly, the Sporting winger was able to tap that in pretty easily. So I think that threw everyone off. But yeah, I think if you look at other games, I think Avilas and Miller have done, they've done well, and I think Kristoff is going to have a difficult time breaking into that back line if it goes back to a flat back four. But I think Tata will continue to play that that 3-5-2, which probably works the best with the current personnel with, midfielders around Busquets, Alba being able to just play as an attacking player, and Messi being able to roam with a center striker or winger, whether it's Farias or Campana or Joseph Martinez, being able to hold that shape. So yeah, it all depends, but I'm just impressed by Avila so far. He's I know there are a couple of times where he will jump out a little bit too quickly, but still, I think he's still growing and maturing, and he's only 19. So, yeah, he'll continue to get better, and then if Kristoff can break back in, then who knows? But I've been impressed by Avilas and Miller as well. A couple of times, especially against that the Nashville game where he had several like last ditch tackles. That was a really I was really impressed by that in his playing style. So, yeah, I think the two of them had an off game against Sporting Kansas City, but still, I think they'll get it together, and Atlanta will be a much more difficult task. But I think with a full strength squad back from international duty, and relatively little to no injuries, I think it'll be. I'm intrigued to see how Tata sets that up.
Aviles to me is the big one over this offseason that has the perhaps like the most potential, the most room for growth. Not just as he gets comfortable in this team, in this country, in this organization and all, but also just how he grows physically and bulks up, really becomes a professional center back. Not that he wasn't before, but at 19 years old, you make a good point that he really physically hasn't fully developed into the full potential of the player that he is. And I really think that he's that one player that you can see make a big jump over this winter, and come February and come March, we can be talking about a different player because he has been quality so far. There just is a little bit of I guess, association, comfortability that he and Miller need to get, where it seemed at times that Miller and Kristoff were really getting comfortable with each other, and now you insert him in, and they're redoing it over again, and that leads to a couple of things that you would hope to avoid. But as you mentioned, I think that week by week, it continues to get better. Last point on the Kansas City game before we move on: the introduction of Lawson Sunderland, who recently signed his first team contract with Inter Miami. Also Santi Morales, the 16-year-old son of assistant coach and former interim head coach Javi Morales, signing a first team contract with Inter Miami. So first off, congratulations to both of them. Lawson now introduced into the squad in this game, and he's someone that I've been high on for years now, for a couple years. Very much think rated highly on my part. A steady grower, really has a good projected growth to him that game by game will improve. I thought it was a solid opening performance for him as well, and someone that I think really, as he grows into becoming a first-team professional footballer, I think over time you'll see not dissimilar. I'm not comparing them like for like with Benjamin Kremeshki, but someone who in that mold will benefit greatly from being in training every single day like this, and we will see day by day by day the progressive growth that he's going to have. It won't be overnight. There's not going to be one day where you go, oh my God, wow, that Lawson Sunderland now all of a sudden is a great player. But he does have the potential of a solid career trajectory that I think is very promising for Inter Miami, and with his age, a future career perhaps in Europe or wherever he finds success at.
Yeah. And yeah, I think I think I don't think people remember that Lawson Sunderland had his debut against excuse me, against rival of Sporting Kansas City, which was St. Louis. Right before Messi, Busquets, and Alba got there. You know, it was kind of a weird time where we knew the three were coming, but you know they weren't here yet. So Tata had to send out a lineup without them, obviously. And yeah, Sunderland got his first start, I believe, for Miami in that game as I don't know if it was an emergency call up or like
It was.
a
Yeah, he was
temporary
in Inter
loan
Miami
deal.
2 players. Yep.
Yeah, and he played well for the most part, and it was unfortunate that you know he couldn't get more time, but you know I was glad to see him actually sign for the first team. So yeah, now we can see more of him and you know his skill set. So I think he's one of those midfielders that Tata had his eye on, and now he's brought him up to the first team. So I'm intrigued and excited to see how he gets on with that.
Inter Miami now wins yet again. It promotes them up in the standings. They're still in 14th, but up to 28 points on 26 games played, with 2 games in hand and only 6 points behind DC for that 9th and final playoff berth. So basically in control of their own playoff destiny, which a month and a half ago would have seemed impossible. The only thing that they need outside of winning their own way and controlling their own destiny is one Chicago tie or loss. If they do either and Miami wins their final 8 games, Miami will be in the MLS Cup playoffs. It's just a mathematical fact, which is really astonishing given where they were when we were talking about this early on this summer, that Miami is currently in that position with a great chance this weekend to continue that in Atlanta as well on the road, where all of a sudden they are flying high and being able to play with some pretty good success. I say that, but before we get to Atlanta, I want to talk about the international break that we had. Lionel Messi scoring an unbelievable wonder goal for Argentina in the free kick in their World Cup qualifying win earlier on in the international break, getting a little bit rest later on. What did you think of his performance while he was away, the reception that had, and then we'll get to the other guys that played in international duty over this break that they had?
Yeah, well, for Messi, obviously, I think you know Argentina's their first win against, if I recall correctly, it's been a whirlwind. We look up the scores real quick. I forgot which team
It
they
was
played,
1-0
but I know
over
Messi scored
Ecuador,
that
if I
free.
remember right.
Ecuador, there we go. There we go, Ecuador. Which you know probably could have used Leo Campana and maybe Dixon Arroyo, but yeah, Ecuador, they were able to win later on, and they're you know on 0 points despite winning. I think because they fielded an eligible player last World Cup cycle, and that was a whole mess. So they were docked points. But yeah, Argentina against Ecuador, Messi scoring that free kick, you know, was kind of inevitable. And then you know he was able to sit out against Bolivia, where Argentina were able to take care of that 3-0. And you know, regarding other internationals, Ben Hakarmaski getting his first U.S. men's national team cap, really cool. He had a slip through ball that led to the fourth goal from Oman. You know, it was an own goal, but still it was a really nice play. Sergei Kristov got some time. Robert Taylor, he got a couple minutes. Joseph Martinez started for Venezuela once, played about 56 minutes, I believe. You know, Diego Gomez played for Paraguay before he got injured, and we'll see how that develops, if it's a long-term thing or short-term injury, but hopefully it's nothing too serious. Excuse me, I'm trying to look down the list now. There are a handful of internationals that Miami were
Drake went
suffering
into
from,
camp
but
after Drake went into camp after the Sporting Kansas City game, right? Didn't appear, but
yeah,
did
I
get
don't
the
think
call up.
he didn't play. Yeah, but yeah, good for Drake. And Yeah, it's cool to see Inter Miami with a handful of internationals now, and yeah, I'm looking for, as the team continues to win and play well, there are only, other players will continue to get calls. David Luiz, I think he was off with Honduras as well. So yeah, there are national team caliber players at Inter Miami, and the more they continue to play well, the more they will continue to get called up.
9 players out for Inter Miami on international duty in this window. And it really raised an interesting question that I don't know if MLS has ever had to deal with. Some of us who have been covering the league for a long time, this has never been an issue where a team would be so affected by international call ups like this. And MLS running in a summer schedule from March to October has generally always played more or less through FIFA international breaks. Now, with Inter Miami having 9 players, and you have some teams that played over the course of the weekend, St. Louis being one of them, that didn't have a single international call up, still being able to play. The question arose in this window of, does MLS now have to consider, given the rise in caliber of the league, given rise in the talent level that the league is now putting out, not just with the U.S. men's national team, which it has for years, not just with the Canadian national team, which it has for years, but now especially with Central American and South American countries starting to get there, in Europe and Asia as well. That should MLS now consider and build into its schedule FIFA international breaks like the big leagues do, like England, France, Germany, Spain, Italy do, where these are designated FIFA international dates and they do not schedule games during it if they don't have to. Inter Miami has a rare calendar this year because of their deep run in the Leagues Cup and because of the Messi delay that the league sort of built into their schedule, that they are basically would have had to have played this game regardless against Sporting Kansas City, just because they need to get the games in by the end of the year. That's why they have the weird home and home against Charlotte as the last 2 games of the year this year. But does MLS need to reconsider how they do this? It's something that they've dealt with for so long, so well, because it hasn't been an issue, now seems to be on their doorstep in a great way, but one that they're going to need to address this offseason, I think.
Yeah, yes, it's still ridiculous that they don't just I don't know, they don't abide by that FIFA international window, and it's hurting teams, especially in MLS, and even more so now with Messi in the league. I think they obviously want Messi to play in almost in every game he's available for Inter Miami, but when he's not on the field, MLS, they're missing on eyeballs and whatnot. But obviously Messi can't play every game, but still I think it's really harsh to have him go back and forth. Obviously Argentina does take a lot of priority, getting continuing to qualify for that 2026 World Cup. And still wanting to stay fit for the Copa America next year, it takes priority. But still, I think every single MLS player would have had it would have been beneficial for them to just take those week and a half, 2 weeks off just to chill out. The schedules get congested at this time of year, especially now with Leagues Cup. With Inter Miami, they went all the way and won it. They barely had a week off. I think this current week, from the Sporting game to Atlanta United this week, and this is their first full week off since the big three kind of came in now for, and Miami needed that. So I hope that they're able to just abide by FIFA calendar and the FIFA ruling, but the MLS is kind of weird in that sense. So let's see how that goes.
Well, we've seen how this has been a problem in the past with World Cups. When they were in the summer, they got a little bit lucky with the 2023 World Cup being, or 2022 World Cup being in December, that they didn't have to deal with it. But normally when the World Cup is in the summer, that's an issue. Normally when Gold Cup is happening in the summer, that's an issue as well. Normally when Copa America is happening as well, that's an issue. So this is going to be something that I think is probably going to dominate this offseason. It's going to be a conversation that is going to happen in league circles quite a bit. It is already starting to happen in league circles. But I think when the calendar flips over in January and February, the conversation that's going to dominate this next year is going to be how MLS fits in their calendar with now, like you mentioned, with the addition of Leagues Cup, with the need to take international breaks, with the addition of CONCACAF Champions Cup that will now be less number of games, which is a good thing for them. But with Copa America coming up as well, there's a lot on the calendar, a lot on the American soccer calendar in 2024, and how they deal with that will probably be a precursor to how they're going to deal with it for the 2026 World Cup when it's here in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And I think that this is the time for MLS to really, they've gotten away with this for a long time. And I think it's a testament to how good the league is becoming that they now have to deal with this problem. And now it is a big problem, but it's going to be a big problem moving forward. And now is the proper time, I think, for them to deal with it. All right, Alex, let's talk about Atlanta United and this road game coming up this weekend. Inter Miami gets their 9 players back from international duty. We'll see a little later on in the week if any, some, all of those players, none of those players, hopefully not, are available come Atlanta. We expect at least a good portion of them to be available in this game. It is a game on turf. Atlanta United does play in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is the home of the Atlanta Falcons, which does have a turf field. So it brings up that conversation again. Messi said in his first press conference with us that he played on turf as a child, and he, doesn't really get all the talk about he's going to refuse to play on a turf field. He said he's played on it before, and he sees no issue with playing on it. Whether or not that's, him saying that for the cameras and behind the scenes, maybe his team has more reservation is yet to be determined. But what do you make of this game on turf coming back from an international break, limited rest, maximum travel because he's coming back from South America as well, and his availability for this weekend's matchup?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I was Tata, I would rest Messi the first 45 minutes, honestly. I think, Atlanta has kind of revamped their side. They signed a couple of players and they've been looking better as of late. But still, it's the turf there at Atlanta. I know it's technically considered nice turf, but still, it's the ball bounces strange, and the timing's always off, and the ball moves faster than you anticipate on that turf field, and it's not aesthetically pleasing to play on. Every turf field in the league is not, it plays weird. So I know Messi won't have an issue. He said he won't have an issue, but still, it's a hard surface and not somewhere that football should be played, in my opinion, personally. But if Messi wants to start, he had a couple of days rest. He didn't play against that in that Argentina game against Bolivia, and if he wants to play, I think he'll push. And Tata, obviously, will have to make that decision. But it'll be an important game for Miami. They're 6 points back of DC United, I believe, if I ever recheck the standings. 6 points back of DC United if they win.
Yep.
6 points. Yeah, they're
correct.
6 points back of DC United, and if they win and Chicago loses, I think like you said, Ian, before, Miami's destiny kind of hinges on. Yeah,
Chicago
so they need to lose, which it's
they could tie.
I don't know, looking at Chicago's schedule.
To.
Yeah. They play Montreal this weekend, and Montreal are, kind of a hot and cold team. So maybe, ex-Inter Miami players Bryce Duke and Ariel Lassiter can undo Miami a favor and try to beat them or draw. But I think I don't know. I think it all depends. Messi will surely play. I am a little worried about the Albas and the Busquets. How are they going to play on that pitch? But Atlanta play in an NFL stadium, and their owners are still perf crazy. So yeah, let's see. But I'm kind of expecting Messi to play, really.
There was an interesting revelation in this that came in the world of American football this week, and that of the NFL Players Association issuing a statement saying that they are advocating for the NFL to remove all remaining turf fields and replace them with natural grass after this season. How that would impact MLS is, a team like Atlanta, like New England, like Seattle, who play in NFL stadiums on turf fields, would no longer have to have that issue, which, anybody who's a soccer fan obviously would appreciate that. But the NFLPA coming out and saying it's a player safety issue, both for American football players as well. So we'll see if the ball gets rolling on that. And this is maybe the last time or the last season that we're having this conversation about artificial turf in Major League Soccer. That would be very welcomed, at least in my opinion, on not having to deal with this. It's a double-edged sword for Miami, right? Because if Messi does play, then he runs the risk of injury on something that he's not accustomed to. Whether or not he's played it as a child, he's not a child anymore, right? He's not even a young up and coming player who probably has the recovery of a young player. He's 36. So he doesn't want to deal with an issue like that in an unforgiving turf. I would extend that same thing to Busquets and Alba as well. They are not familiarized with games that would require the physical toll on your knees that artificial turf does. That the changing of direction, everything changes. The pace of the ball changes. There's a lot different on artificial turf when we have this conversation that I think is worth noting. That being said, they're in a playoff hunt. And if they are serious about this, like they keep saying, we're serious about it, and they keep showing that they are, every 3 points is valuable. And so you perhaps run the risk, but we'll see. This is an Atlanta team that Miami has played well so far this season. Before Messi came back in May, before Busquets and Alba came as well, back in May, they defeated Atlanta pretty solidly, a 2-1 win, but it was more 2-0 when Joseph Martinez scored his 100th MLS goal. Atlanta scoring a goal in stoppage time late in the game, which was the reason for the final scoreline. But also we saw that Leagues Cup game, which was really the show, the debut of the Messi show, of how dominant that 4-0 win was against Atlanta United, to really put a stomp on that group, winning that group after beating Cruz Azul as well, and making a case for what was to come with this iteration of this team. So this is a team that Miami has played very well. It does have some players that can hurt you. Caleb Wiley immediately comes to mind, a very solid winger, a young up-and-coming winger through the American system that I think is very good. How do you like this Atlanta team that's been a bit Jekyll and Hyde in MLS play this year, as they've been consistently inconsistent, but done enough to get results to put themselves in a good playoff position?
Yeah, and I think the new sightings that they brought in have definitely changed that landscape, and good for them, really. I think it'll be a difficult game for Miami, especially away. I think it'll probably be a match where they open the Mercedes-Benz Arena to full capacity, and a lot of Atlanta United fans will be there. Of course, a lot of people who will be there for Messi as well. But I think it'll be a difficult game for Miami. But I don't know. I think that Leagues Cup game where Miami beat them 4-0 will still be on the back of their mind. But like I said earlier, Atlanta has brought in 2 wingers that have complicated names that I can't really pronounce. So right now there's Jean de Silva and hold on, let me get this correct. Saba. Hold on. They're designated. One of them's a designated player, but yeah. Anyway, but they
Bernard
brought in 2
Camungo
wingers that
they brought in. Bernard
yes,
Camungo they brought in,
yes. And Saba
who's also very
Loeb John. I really can't pronounce this guy's last name,
say it
but I
5
don't want
times
to
fast
be
before the week
disrespectful
ends.
right now. Yeah, for sure. But Van de Silva and Muyamba that you just mentioned, but yeah, they brought in players that have kind of given them new life, and it'll be difficult in that turf. So it's hard to predict anything in soccer, but I don't know. It's just a kind of wait and see mode, really.
This is a homecoming for Tata Martino, who did lead Atlanta United to an MLS Cup final championship as head coach of Atlanta United. Joseph Martinez got his return to Atlanta United. He came over from them in this past offseason to Inter Miami, got his brace in the home version of this. Now he makes the return leg with his coach and coach who was with him in Atlanta as well. How do you think that the welcoming will be for Tata in this game, and how do you predict that the Atlanta faithful will welcome Tata back into Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
I think they'll give respect, both him and Joseph, to an extent. and I think they'll be respectful, and I don't think they'll be content at Messi and company, but I think they'll give Tata and Joseph the respect that honestly they deserve because the two of them delivered an MLS Cup to Atlanta. So yeah, I think they'll be respectful.
The Atlanta the rivalry has always been interesting to me, where it seems like it's more of an on the field rivalry than the Orlando one. The Orlando one has the fanfare of the Florida Derby. It has the fans going back and forth very aggressively with each other. The Atlanta one seems to be a lot more focused on the field and tactically trying to beat each other. I remember when Atlanta fans were down here, that there was a lot of talk about football. Now, mind you, that was right. The last time that they were here was, Orlando fans have made the accusation that they were here right before the mural in Miami was painted with the purple. The Messi mural was painted with the purple. So there was back and forth between Orlando and Atlanta fans as to who was responsible for that. But how have you made this rivalry out to be in the past and now here in this new phase of it?
I don't think it's as much of a rivalry as it is with like Orlando, honestly. But I think it's just the two fan bases bonding over their mutual hatred of Orlando, really. So, I think I don't know.
Would
I
you
would
say
say
it's
it's kind of friendly, but
Would you say
yeah,
it's
I would say it's kind
better,
of
or would
friendly,
you say
but
it's a
yeah,
better rivalry? Would you say it's a better rivalry than Nashville, or a better rivalry than DC,
yeah.
for example?
Oh my gosh, yeah. The Nashville one, especially
I'm
after
putting you on the
Leagues Cup,
spot
I've
here. We didn't
seen a
prepare
lot of
for
the
this.
fans go. Yeah, of the national rivalry, I think a lot of the fans don't like each other in that regard. But yeah, I would say it's Orlando, Nashville, DC, and Atlanta. Atlanta's kind of like friendly, friendly foe, really.
I think that's a good way of putting it. I think I agree with you on that. I think I would put it in that order: Orlando, Nashville, DC, and then Atlanta, which is good. It's good to have these sort of. It's good to be at a point in the history of Inter Miami that these things are now organically solving their way out, and people are starting to get a little bit of a feel for how this is going to go. All right, Alex, that concludes another week of the Heron Outlet. Please make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Subscribe to our Substack, theheronoutlet.substack.com. You can follow us, subscribe on YouTube at the Heron Outlet's YouTube channel, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts on Apple Play, Spotify, Google, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there as well. She is Alex Winley. For our producer, Andres, I am Ian Hess. This is the Heron Outlet, and we'll see you back here this time next week.